It does make the army unbelievably tanky against certain things. Hi, welcome to episode 3 of Judging the Journal. This week we are looking at the Troll Horde. This is the second of the Arcane Journal armies that are for Orcs and Goblins. This is the troll-focused one, as you might expect from the name. How are you feeling about this army?
Your powers of deduction astound me, Ed.
I'm not saying that I have stupidity, but I have failed a lot of stupidity tests today.
You are playing a lot with the trolls at the moment. I think it's rubbing off on you ever so slightly.
It definitely is, yes. No, I'm a good sort of 14, 16 games into trolls, and I've been playing with some good lists and some bad lists, but we'll get more into that on the podcast. So if you want to hear about how the bad list is going, I'll talk about that on Wednesday.
You want to know how to lose with Troll Horde? Coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just get straight into it. So first of all, we've got Troll Horde. Obviously, you still get the base rules for being an Orcs and Goblin army. Turns out not many of them are very relevant. Trolls don't get choppers, they don't get warband. Obviously, a normal USR, it's not an Orcs and Goblin specific one. They don't get Ignore Panic, they're not Black Orcs. You can't take Black Orcs in this army, so there's not really much in the way of normal rules that we should talk about. So I think let's just go straight onto the rules that you get for being Troll Horde.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So give us a run through. First of all, enhanced regeneration.
Yeah, so number one, this is a reroll of any failed regeneration against non-magical attacks. Now, I've actually run the numbers on this, Ed. Obviously, your 5-up regen, your probability of success just without a reroll is 33%, but you increase this with the reroll to 55%. So over half your saves will be made, which is pretty incredible resilience. And you've got to think, a 4-up regen, not many things have access to that. And this is better than a 4+ regen.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And maybe you might also have heavy armor, pretty standard across all the models in your army. So maybe you've got 3 5-up regens, depending on what they're shooting at you or hitting you within the face. It does make the army unbelievably tanky against certain things. Now, this is the weird part of the army. You are unbelievably tanky up until you get hit by flaming or magical attacks. Magical attacks aren't too bad. You still get one layer of your saves. But if you get hit with by, let's say, a fireball, that is quite unpleasant. You're not super happy about that. There are some ways around it, which we do talk about when we get to the list, but it's definitely something to be aware of.
Definitely.
Moving on, we've got Oi Disway.
Oi Disway. So troll mobs get to use the leadership of shamans and troll hags if they're within their command range. So this, for your traditional troll mob, leadership 4 or leadership 5 for the stone trolls, up to boosts up to 6 to 8, depending on what type of shaman and troll hag you have. So that's quite a big jump in leadership from 4 to 8, effectively. So it should really help with the stupidity rolls that you're going to be rolling a lot in this army.
It does, yeah, because that is the other main downside. The two downsides are the tankiness is conditional, and the second downside is that, well, I guess the second downside is you can't run fanatics. The third downside is that you have to roll stupidity checks. However, there's ways around that as well. And now, this is something that I'd like the internet to fact check me on, but I believe there is sort of like an infinite, well, not an infinite, but like a silly amount of rolls you can make to pass your stupidity checks. But we'll talk about that when we get to the spell section.
Are you trying to break the game, Ed?
No,
I'm trying
to play my models without having to walk them forwards and do nothing. But you know, we'll see. I mean, it's pretty good anyway. But we've also got Troll Tongue, and what does that one give you?
So Troll Tongue, really simple, gives you access to the law of troll magic, which is very rapidly becoming one of my favourite magic laws.
It is very good, and there is a magic item that you can take if you want to get access to the troll law outside of this detachment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's super worthwhile doing so if you want. I mean, if you want to go fanatics and trolls, maybe. But I think maybe just pick a lane and stick with it. And this is a fairly solid lane to be in. I'm really enjoying playing Troll Horde, and I think it's quite competitively viable as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of troll magic, what have we got? First of all, the signature spell, Big Smartz.
Yeah, so we've picked out a couple of spells here, but yeah, Big Smartz is the signature one, and I think this is one you are going to swap out every single time for every single caster.
Yeah.
It gives you a command range reroll of stupidity tests. So distribute this amongst your whole army. It combos really, really well with Oidis Way. So higher leadership models are giving out their leadership and hopefully also giving out a reroll to those stupidity tests. So yeah, really excellent one.
Yeah, so this is where it's worth talking about. And I'm not 100% sure on that. So if I'm wrong and if there's a rule that stops this, please do let me know. I would like to know. I haven't really been abusing this so far, but it's, you know. So basically the way that Big Smartz works is if you have it in play, when you take a stupidity test, you get to re-roll if you fail.
Yeah.
So you take your stupidity test at the start of the turn. That's before you cast Big Smartz. So turn 1, you have to take the stupidity test nakedly, and then you just go. But turn 2 onwards, you can have it remains in play.
Yeah.
So let's say you fail your stupidity, and then you fail it again, because your Big Smartz reroll, you roll a 9 both times. That sucks. Oh well. Then it comes round to the point of the turn where you cast your enchantments, and then you cast Big Smartz. So you dispel it with the, well, you cast it again, so it drops off and immediately recast it. You successfully cast your Big Smartz, at which point you get to roll again for your stupidity test.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
Because you're not re-rolling it, you're taking the test again, I believe is the wording. And then if you fail that, you've got Big Smartz in play.
Yeah.
So you can re-roll. So right now you need to fail 4 times. But then what if you have another caster in range? So you failed 4 times, and then you cast again. I don't think there's any rule that stops you from doing this. It feels a bit cheesy, but also the rule is just I'm allowed to play my models. So I'm not sure how I feel about it.
I guess it would come down to when what's the exact point the previous enchantment ends and the new one starts.
I don't think that matters,
and
because
then,
you cast it. Yeah, like you take the stupidity at the start of the turn.
Yeah.
Then
which you re-roll because you've already got the spell up.
Yeah, you then go to cast the enchantment, which when you do that, it immediately dispels itself.
Yeah.
So you cast it, and you get the cast off. At that point, you're allowed to retake stupidity tests.
Yeah.
And then it's already there. So you get to re-roll it as well.
Okay, you take 4.
I think we might be spending too long on this, but it's an interesting.
We're in the weeds, Ed.
yeah. So let us know in the comments, because that's the one thing that I'm not super confident.
I guess ultimately you're taking the risk with the second cast, aren't you? You've lost your first enchantment, and then you've got the risk of actually failing the magic test or getting dispelled. So. Yeah. I think the 4th one works. I'm less confident when you get up to 5 sets of stupidity tests.
Who can say? Who can say? Not me. All right, moving on. Troll Brains. We do have a hex in here as well.
Troll Brains, indeed. An insult you can use against all of your friends. It's hex, 15 inches, cast on a 9. So one thing I will say about this magic lore is the highest casting value in it is 9, which with your level 4 wizard is not too difficult. And none of these spells, I would say, are particularly challenging to cast. So really, really easy kind of lore to get through. You target a unit within 15 inches, and that unit becomes stupid. And in addition, it has -1 to its leadership. It's a remains in play spell as well, so it'll stick around if your opponent doesn't get rid of it. So mess with your opponents here, I think.
So remains in play on a hex is usually downside. It's normally bad. In this case, they take the stupidity test and then they can roll to dispel. So even if they dispel it immediately, you effectively get 1 full battle round's worth of hex out of it, which is quite nice. Yeah. But if they fail to dispel it, then sucks to suck. You've got stupidity the next turn. It's a little bit of a shame you can't cast this on allies as well, because then that would unlock the Ravenous Recourse, which we'll get to in a second. But no, it's fine. I don't pick it myself. I'm not huge on hexes, like conditional hexes like this, where they have to fail a test and then something happens. But it's definitely one of the spells that you can take and not feel bad for doing so.
Yeah, and the flat -1 leadership debuff is always useful.
That's probably the best bit of it, yeah, realistically. But speaking of Ravenous Recourse, what does that one do?
Here we go. So this is a spell cast on 8+, so again, nice and easy. All units that have stupidity within 12 inches of the caster get +2 inches to their movement. So combine this up with Big Smartz to hopefully be passing those stupidity tests, and your trolls should be controllable with a movement value of 8.
It's really nice. Just to clarify, this is allied stupid units only. So if you're if you hex your opponent, they don't also get extra movement, which would suck. But no, this is really good. This is an absolute mainstay for the lore. you want your trolls to be up to movement 8. Obviously, you've got no swift stride realistically in the list, maybe a wyvern, but you're looking at just basic monstrous infantry, and all monstrous infantry have is slightly longer legs and slightly tankier bodies. So if you can use that extra movement to jockey for position, make sure that you're only taking, you know, 1 round of shooting instead of 2. It's really nice. And also, if you do the silly 2 trolls in marching column, you can rocket them up the board 24 inches, which is very funny.
Nice, yeah. And it's nice that this is a 12-inch aura as well, so that's a good chunk of your main battle line is going to be affected by this, just getting this off once. So I think it's quite reasonable to see this potentially on 2 different casters if you want to make the most of it and relatively reliably get it off, or position your caster, if it's a lower level one, a bit further back out of the spell range and still be confident it's going to hit a number of targets in your battle line.
Yeah, that's a great shout, because so something to mention is that the Troll Hag is at best a level 2 caster, which is not amazing. So when I'm using my Troll Hag, who's also my general, because it gives her a larger command range radius, there's arguments to make her not the general, make your general harder to kill, but I really like the extra command range. It means that if you stand back and you have that large command range, or even just a 12-inch bubble, and you're out of dispel range, you're actually going to be getting use out of your lower level casters. So it's definitely a tactic you want to think about here.
Yeah, for sure.
Lovely stuff. And I just want to double check the wording. So I would have to double check how stacking works, but I think if you're in range of multiple casters with Ravenous Recourse, you'd get multiple increases.
Ooh, naughty boy.
Yeah, because it's a numerical value, so I think that stacks. Realistically, you're going to have 1. It's very expensive to have multiple high-level troll magic casters in a list, so you're getting it off once, but once is incredible. Finally, I've got here the rapid regeneration. What do we got for that one?
Yeah, it's a really nice one. Cast on a 9, so real challenging to cast for the Troll Horde. 12-inch range, give a unit flammable and regeneration 5+. Yeah. So clearly not aimed at trolls here, but it's thinking about your giants and your war boys. This is when this spell really comes in nicely and hopefully really boost that resilience.
Yeah, so I've been playing Ball Boys in the Square-based online tournament. I've got 1 unit. I cast rapid regeneration on them. I then either jockey for space and cast rapid regeneration on them a second time, or I just missile them up the board and say to my opponent, this is a threat you've got to deal with. Oh, too bad, so sad. You don't get to put all your fireballs into my trolls, who are going to catch you the turn after. I think it's a really solid way to use the unit. But also, like you say, giants, if you want to put something big and beefy in that doesn't have a regen, great place for it.
Just give it one, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I'd love to run multiple Troll Hags, but I also want to run other things in the character slot. So a giant's sort of like a Troll Hag at home. It's your budget Troll Hag, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So the Troll Lore, pretty excellent. Really complements the army quite well. Although you don't want to over-index into it, but we'll get into that later on. And let's talk about some units of note. So first of all, it makes sense. The Troll Queen herself. We've got the Troll Hag. Now, she's tankier than you'd think. Only T5, 6 wounds with a 5-up armor save from heavy armor, and a 5-up regen. Obviously, you get to reroll that regen against non-magical, and she's flammable as well, so she loses against flaming attacks. However, that's already fairly beefy. She's a level 1 caster as default. You can spend 30 points to upgrade it to level 2. Honestly, I wouldn't bother. I haven't been. I think you're probably not going to get your spells off anyway, whether you're level 1 or level 2. I'm not super bothered about rolling in the lore for spells. It's fine, but I just like using her as a Big Smartz caddy and maybe hanging back until sort of turn 3 or turn 4. Using that big command range, making sure all of my units are still in the bubble.
Yeah.
She's unbreakable and immune to psychology. This is incredible. Any army that doesn't have the movement value to get in and jockey for the positional plays to get the charges off likes having something that can take a charge and then not immediately flee and ruin your plans. If you've ever had a unit flee causing your entire battle line to panic and crumble around, you know this is unbelievably backbreaking. So she's tanky and she sits in the front lines and, you know, gives ground if she loses combat, which is not even a given, because she might be weapon skill 2, but she has a rule called Slimy Shanks. This means you're -1 to hit. So at best she's being hit on 3s, which is not great, but into anything less than a Chaos Warrior, you're being hit on 4s. Goblins hit her on 5s, which is hilarious, but I mean, let's be honest, goblins are not your natural prey, so you're not super worried about that. It does mean that if you were to use your attacks, you wouldn't hit very often. Be alright if there was some sort of, like, I don't know, giant-style table of attacks that she got that was just incredibly good. Oh, wait, she does get one.
Got it.
She's got it. And it's the best table I've seen across any of the giants that I've looked at. I think, you know, maybe you look at the... what's it called? Not the man-eater, the massive giant.
The bone grinder giant
has
got some really good ones. I think the normal giants one, like, you can. There's so many results on that table. You roll and you're just like,
yeah. But the Troll has 235 points base and has an incredible table. So it's basically roll a d6, 1 to 2. You get a 5-inch blast template of strength, so strength 6 here, and AP 2. I had this in a game quite recently where I accidentally clipped a Noblar, which wasn't in combat. The Noblar died, providing additional combat res to the fight, which was hilarious. And the big unit of man-eaters ended up running, partially because of that. So that was great. If you roll a 3 to 4, the target, you pick a model, and that model loses D3 plus 1 wounds with no armor or regen. Now, against foot infantry, obviously this is terrible, but are you really going to be in combat with foot infantry that don't have characters all that often, that aren't challenging you out? Probably not. So, yeah, you're just going to get, you know, potentially 2 to 4 wounds there for combat res. This is terrifying for something big like a steam tank or a dragon. You're just like, oh yeah, so you could take some 5-up regens, but you just lose wounds. And if you roll a 5 or a 6, this is my favourite. It's d6 plus 1 hits, getting around that, you know, awkward weapon skill too. And it's no armour and -1 leadership. So strength 6, so you're wounding most things pretty well. They do get to take the ward and regen saves, but they get -1 leadership as well because they're so stunned by the fact that you're slapping them, I think is the justification there. It's a really nice package, and all of them are good in certain situations, but most of them are good in all situations. The only one that's bad is the big blast template if you're going into, say, a dragon. That's where it sucks.
That would annoy you,
Yeah.
I do like that she can eat models in the command phase to regain wounds. That's always quite hilarious when that happens.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't got up here because it's one of those that comes up less frequently.
Yeah, when you hope. And she also has an attack called Motherly Love, which I do like as well. That's always quite funny.
Absolutely.
And to be fair, on a more kind of competitive note, she can take 50 points of magic items.
She can take 50 points of magic items. You've
got to think as well, compared to sort of infantry characters. I know dragons obviously have their own thing, but she can benefit from a disproportionate effect from those magic items compared to an infantry character. So you could give her like the glowy green amulet or something like that, where she can ignore spells targeting her on a 2+. And you would think you're putting that on a character that's already quite tough, already quite large and strong. That anything you put on her has a disproportionately strong effect, I think. So, I think this is a really good unit.
Yeah, because I tend to make the Troll Hag my general. I really like the Talisman of Protection on her.
Yeah.
Just going to, at that point, if you're against, say, normal arrows, they're wounding you on 6s, and then you've got a 5-up, a 5-up, a 5-up, a 5-up.
Yeah.
Armor, ward, regen. The wounds do not get through that.
Exactly,
yes, she is still weak to magic and fire, but that 5-up ward gives her a little bit of protection against it, and you can always spike up when you have to go into something a little bit beefier. Something to note as well, speaking of the giant style table, maybe you roll the wrong one, and you get D3 plus 1 wounds against just a chaff unit of infantry, and like, oh, bugger, well, now I'm going to lose. No, Behemoth plus D6 trumps and a Troll Vomit. So you're doing, at minimum, 2 auto hits. The D6 stomps are strength 6 AP2, the Troll Vomit is strength 3 AP2, but it's free, so why would you not? And she's got a breath weapon. If you end up out of position, she's a behemoth, and because she's not a flying character, it's more likely that you end up sort of out of combat, but near combat, because of positioning, whether you're avoiding something or you're, jockeying to get position, or you've been avoided. You can just, move a little bit, get your free lumbering pivot, breath weapon out, job's a good one, do a surprising amount of damage.
Definitely.
Yeah, really good unit there. But there is, I would say, an even better caster for Troll Horde, and that is Ogdras. So Ogdras is a level 3 caster, but he is casting at +1 if he's near trolls. That's unit strength 6 trolls, so if you've got a unit of 2 nearby, you get +1 to cast. Really
Yep.
nice. It's also a lone character, can't be targeted if it's near a troll, and that has no minimum. So normally you have to be near 5 models of the same unit type as you. In this case, it's just if you are near any troll, and that's specifically trolls, not troll hags, unfortunately. But if
Right.
you're near a troll, you just can't be targeted unless you're the closest unit. Really nice. He's also the troll caller, so this is again the rule where you can use his leadership if you're near a unit of trolls, even if he's not the general. This is quite nice. There is actually a really good use for that and the army rule that we'll get into in a second. He's equipped with a bogwood staff and a chop. He's got the chopper rule, so in combat he's got strength 6, AP 2 in the first round of combat. If he deals any wounds, he gets a wound back.
Nice.
He's only got 2 attacks, but you know, sometimes that's nice. He's also got, I think it's called a Troll Hide cape, so he's got a 6 up armor save and a 5 up regen, obviously re-rollable in Troll Horde. So he's surprisingly tanky for a caster. It's normally hard to get a save on a caster unless you commit like your talisman of protection onto them, which is usually not worthwhile. And then the really spicy thing is he has Lore Familiar, so you can't take it in your army, but he does get to pick his spells. And the way it's worded is he knows spells from 2 laws, Elementalism and Troll Magic. So you can just pick spells from both laws at the same time.
You can pick 3 from both laws.
No, 3 in total.
3 in total.
That would be disgusting.
I was going to say.
Yeah, but no. So you can go for example, Big Smartz and Wind Blast, and then Ravenous Recourse.
Ravenous Recourse, yeah.
That's a nice little combo. Get a little bit of range damage in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of options that you can go with. Only knowing 3 spells is actually more of a hindrance than I thought it would be. The more games I get with him, the more I'm like, I would quite like more spells known. But it's really hard to protect a normal caster in Troll Horde because you're running a lot of infantry that doesn't really shelter the casters if they're on their own, and they can't join them as well because of the clumsy rule. Non-monstrous infantry characters can't join monstrous infantry because they might get stepped on. So,
can you give him the other? I've forgotten the name of the upgrade. The one that gives you an extra spell.
You can't, unfortunately. He's a special character, so he just comes as standard.
Oh right, okay, fine, yeah.
But for what he's equipped with, he is an absolute bargain. Like you're saving points on a level 3 caster with all of these extra rules on top of him. He's I think 195
and just
points.
to be able to pick the spells from the both laws that you want.
Yeah.
And just be able to just tech into what you need for a particular matchup. Useful.
It's really. A lot of flexibility. Yeah. I haven't been using the my brain's gone blank. The ward spell from Elementalism, Oaken Shield, I believe it's called, because you can't march or charge. But I think I need to start doing that against the big gunline units. Mm-hmm. So if you've got something that's got 5 up armor, 5 up ward, 5 up regen, 5 up regen, you're probably tanking some Hellblasters and not caring all too much. So I think that's something I need to experiment with more. And just not care about not being able to march. Sometimes that's probably the best way forwards. But yeah, so 2 really good units there. I think both of them make it into every Troll Horde list I play. It's really difficult to cut one. If I was going to cut one, I'd cut the Troll Hag, but she's so efficient. She's so tanky.
She's
she gets
so
into
gorgeous.
Combat.
You can't put her in.
Well, no, I absolutely loathe the model, but that's another discussion. It's effective. I understand what they were going for, and it definitely evokes emotion. I just loathe
You don't like that emotion.
No, I hate everything about it, but that's okay.
There must be. Have you found a 3D print one that is a bit more to your taste?
I mean, if I was going to, because I've been playing Troll Horde almost exclusively online, if I want to go for it, I'll probably just use one of the Troggoth models from the Gits from Age of Sigmar, because they're really nice.
I mean, she's giant sized, effectively, isn't she? So is she on a giant 50 by 100?
I believe it's a 60 by 100. That's the standard for behemoths. So yeah, that'll fit on nicely. Moving on, then we have got magic items of note. Now, there aren't actually that many magic items that you necessarily want to go for here. You've got your Troll Hag, who you're probably taking with Talisman of Protection, so she doesn't really take anything else. You've got your Ogdras, who I think is not necessarily an auto pick, but he's super competitive. He's really worth running. He's very flavorful. He can't take any items because he's a special character. So you're left with really 1 or maybe 2 other characters that you've kind of got to go a little bit cheap on. So there are a few things that are still worth looking at. The first of all is the Troll Hide Trousers. Now, this gives you +1 to your save, and it gives you a 5 up regen. What do you get to do with a regen in this detachment?
Oh, maybe do you get to re-roll it?
Yeah, you do. This means you can take a Wyvern boss, and you can't take the Black Orc boss, because Black Orcs don't like how smelly trolls are, which understandable.
I mean, that's a fair point.
Yeah, no, I can't argue. You've got me there. But you can take a regular Orc war boss with, heavy armor, on a wyvern, shield, trollhide trousers. You've got a 3-up save there against shooting, 4-up save in combat. You've got a 5-up rerollable regen. Plus, you can take a charmed shield for a once per game 5-up ward, or the enchanted shield for a 10-up. A 6-up ward for 10 points, and it's against non-magical attacks. I think there's a lot of play there for a beta wyvern that's equipped quite cheaply. Moving on, you've got Ruby Ring of Ruin. I haven't got this in my square-based list, and that is going to lose me a lot of games. This list doesn't like getting outshot, but it has no shooting inherently. Spider Riders are really good core for this with their poison shortbow attacks, but they don't actually pull that much work. They are good chaff, but they're not going to do anything comparable to an opponent with war machines and battle magic. So
no, I mean, they get in the way a bit, don't they? That's about it, isn't it?
I think, unfortunately, Ruby Ring to me feels like a pretty mandatory item in this, especially because you have no shooting outside of it in a realistic capacity. So that's the big change that I want to make for my square-based list. Then we've got the Grizzly Trophy Rack, 30 points. This is for bosses only, so, in this detachment, it's Orc war bosses and Goblin war bosses. And, big bosses as well. What it is it's a 6-inch aura of -1 leadership. Now, if you have, let's say, a terror-causing war boss on a wyvern, your opponent's going to be testing at -2 leadership. And that's not -2 to their test, that's -2 to the leadership characteristic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can add in Troll Brains as well, make that -3.
You absolutely can do, and if you're going for this item, it's probably something you want to think about.
Yeah.
The downside is a lot of events, especially the square-based event, are ruling General's leadership as if you're using that leadership, you don't take any negative effects that are affecting the unit. So if the General's outside of the leadership debuff, you still get to test at General's leadership.
Right. Okay.
Which has benefits and it has downsides. In fact, let's just talk about that, because that's really relevant to this detachment, because they have Oi, what's that over there, or whatever the role is called.
Yeah, Oi this way.
That's the one. So if you're playing against,
over there?
if you're playing against a Scream list, you will be looking at having templates that say can't use General's leadership, or can't use General's inspiring presence.
Yeah.
-2 to your leadership, -1 to your leadership. Okay, cool. But what if I was using my General's leadership through Oi, what's that over there?
Yeah.
That's the one.
So what's that over there? I don't know, Ed. It's behind me.
you'll be testing on unmodified 8s, and I believe the Terrorgeist Scream as well, you'd still be casting on an unmodified 8. I'm not 100% sure on that one. It hasn't come up yet. I haven't played it into the Scream list, but it avoids a lot of the necromancy debuffs, or just other leadership debuffs as well, which is not something that's super played around with at the moment, but is very strong. And as people sort of get over the what's the most obvious and straightforward way to play, and how do I start thinking more tactically about the game, it's something that's only going to get better and better.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're just adding on maybe 2 to the original leadership or 3 to original leadership, every time you get screamed at, that's another 3 wounds you're not taking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely huge. So, Grizzly Trophy Rack, not something I've got in my list, but something that I have added into subsequent lists.
Yeah.
I think it's really strong. It takes up the Talisman slot, which is why you might not see it in normal lists, but if you're putting the Talisman of Protection on the Troll Hag, you're open to do it on the Wyvern.
Yeah.
And then finally, Dechopius Chopper. You don't necessarily go for this. I just like it if you want to go a little more defensively tooled on your war boss. Because your armor save is worse, you might want to, instead of going for a great weapon, take Dechopius Chopper. This puts you at strength 6, AP 3, which is still pretty good, and you get to use a shield. So I would combo this with the Enchanted Shield. And then as you're flying around, any non-magical attacks, you're just taking a 3-up save all of the time. You've got, a 6-up ward against non-magical attacks and a 5-up rerollable regen. Makes you really tanky against anything other than very specific units. So it's a little bit of a meta read, but I quite like it if you want to just go beefy with your secondary tanky unit.
No, exactly. And I was saying earlier before the show that this is a weapon I want to put on my Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, to be honest, because I think it just does everything I need it to do. But alas, I don't think you could give a Vampire Lord something called Dechopius Chopper without him looking very down on you.
It's a shame. It's a shame. And sometimes initiative does matter. It's not often, but sometimes you'll be on low wounds, your opponent will be on low wounds, and you'll be glad that they have a great weapon and you have Dechopius Chopper. So let's move on to the list that I've ended up on. So this is I think I said about 12 or 14 games into Troll Horde now. So there's been a lot of refining. This is sort of where I've ended up. I'd like more chaff, but it's hard to fit them in. I'd love to run ball boys, but again, it's hard to fit them in. You want a real sort of. You need to hit a saturation point of troll wounds for the list to work, in my opinion. If you're only running 1 or 2 mid-sized units, you can get shot off the board quite quickly.
Down, yeah.
And then your list sort of collapses. So what I've gone with here is the aforementioned Troll Hag, level 1, Troll Magic, Talisman Protection, changing into Big Smartz every game. She's the general. She can either hang at the back if you're scared about being blasted off the board, or if your opponent's not playing that sort of list, push forwards, have a nice bubble, and be quite difficult to deal with. Ogdra's Bone Splitter, that's your main sort of buffing piece caster. He's just going to be casting his enchantments, advancing up the board, keeping up with the rest of the trolls as much as possible. We've got an Orc Warboss, Wyvern, Great Weapon, Heavy Armor, Charmed Shield for a 1/5 ward, Trollhide Trousers for that rerollable regen, Grizzly Trophy Rack. These are all items I've talked about already, but the combination is admittedly an impetuous unit, but put it on the flanks, it's going to smash things, it's not going to die, it's going to make way more of its points back. You're going to be running things down left, right, and centre with the -2 leadership. You're going to be having a great time, and your opponent's going to have a real difficulty dealing with it, unless they send their dragon, which I don't think is a particularly great way to deal with a 350-odd point character that's also quite fast. So that gives you options there. And then this is the big adaptation. It's a level 4 Weird Knob on Warboar. This isn't screened by the trolls, so you've got to be really careful with your positioning. But I've gone Battle Magic and Ruby Ring and Ruin. This means that you're definitely getting the Fireball from the Ruby Ring. You're probably getting either Pillar of Fire or Fireball. Maybe you get both. But if you've got 2 of the 3 there, including the Ruby Ring, which you guaranteed get, you're quite happy about clearing away enemy chaff. And you're able to play the sort of standoff jockey game a lot more comfortably, because you're not just taking damage and then it gets to turn 5, your opponent, refuses to charge you, and you go, oh, I lose, 8-12, this sucks. Moving on to the core, you can have 1 unit of trolls per 1,000 points plus an additional 1 for each troll hag you're running. So I've got 8 stone trolls with great weapons, 4 stone trolls with great weapons, 4 stone trolls with great weapons. I've been running an 8 and a 6. I think I want more board control from having the 4, and playing against ogres, which are running 4 Iron Guts, I just really like them. I think it's a good width. You can maneuver around well. You get a lot of attacks on quite a small frontage. You've got the Troll Vomit. It's a very efficient way to spend your points. We've got 7 Goblin Spider Riders. They've got a boss and musician. If you're ever going to flee, you should run musicians. I've been learning that the hard way recently. Giving you +1 to rally is really nice. I've gone for light armor, short bows, and shields, playing an extra couple of points here, but it is worth doing because they are the protection for the Weird Knob. You can put the Weird Knob in the unit. I prefer not to, because what I'm probably going to be doing is marching the Goblin Spider Riders up, using the fact that they're fast cavalry and open order, pivoting them around so they can't see the enemy, so that next turn, when it comes to your turn, you don't have to take an impetuous test. Putting the Weird Knob in a position where you're shooting the things you want to shoot, but you're blocked off from a lot of shots back, and just using that sort of lone character screening and also the physical screening of the models to prevent you from being shot back. I think this is probably quite difficult to use. Like, this is the rest of the list doesn't play itself, but it's not particularly finesse. This is the bit of the list that I think takes a little bit of getting used to. I found it very useful when I've used it, because, like I say, having that mobile caster that just guns down enemy chaff is really nice. Yeah. And then special 2 River Trolls. They just either go in marching column or go next to each other. They are Ogdra's personal bodyguard. Or if you're not playing against a lot of shooting, you can just say, okay, I'm going to put them in marching column. Turn 1, I'm in my opponent's flank. Turn 2, I'm going to, change my facing, move out of marching column into regular close order, and then turn 3 I'm going to threaten to charge the flank or rear, or maybe a unit's turn to face me, at which point I'm just going to try and give them the run around and really make them struggle. So we will talk about why we've gone for stone trolls, but have you got any thoughts about the list before we go on to that one?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's playing into the whole troll thing, which is clearly the point. The Spider Riders, I I can see the value. I have concerns that an army with a decent amount of shooting is going to clear those spider riders just immediately. They're just going to die. I mean, obviously, you've given them the light armor and shields, but sitting on a 5-up, they're just going to get
They
annihilated.
definitely play more around the flank. They're not in
Yeah,
range of
and then
most
I
shooting.
then just worry. I mean, how many points is sunk into that weird
Not
knob?
that many.
No?
So the weird knob is off the top of my head probably about 240-ish.
Yeah,
It's definitely, you do have to position this correctly,
yeah,
but if you understand your opponent's ranges, then it's not a problem.
yeah. And I think you do need the level 4 in there.
Yeah.
Because as you say, if you don't have any kind of range capability, you're just very vulnerable to people just kind of playing around you and walking away from you, or just out shooting you
Yeah.
and not committing. So I think that's in there. I mean, what's the thought on potentially using some of those points on war machines instead? Is there
Not in Troll Horde, there's not.
no? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the restrictions.
Yeah.
And you do have to take 33% of your army as core. That's fine.
Yes.
You can take stone trolls
Loads
or
of trolls,
take
yeah.
trolls. Yeah,
Easy.
so it does what you want. But again, you are limited. You can't take black orcs, so you don't end up taking the war machines. A lot of stuff are limited there. You do still have access to ball boys, which, as you may know, are the best heavy cavalry in the game.
Yes, yeah, I'd be inclined. I think basically the core of the trolls is spot on. A troll hag and Ogdruz is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
I think it's just the warboss and wyvern, the weird knob, and the spider riders. I think you could probably take those out and put something else into taste. Really?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I really like the warboss. I think that wants to stay in. It's
Yeah.
If anything, you maybe drop the troll hag and the weird knob. If you drop the troll hag, you can put the weird knob on a wyvern with a talisman of protection, which is very pricey, but it gives you a tankier mobile caster with large targets, so you can shoot over your units. Or you can go in a different direction. You could probably go for a second troll hag if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Maybe make both of them level 2 battle magic and just fish for some fireballs. I think there's different ways to play around it, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. No, I like it.
Perfect. Well, let's just wrap up with the why stone trolls versus river trolls.
So there's 3 types of troll. So you've got your common trolls.
There's 2 types of troll.
Yeah, you can't. Well, let's give the common trolls their hearing. Let's at least discuss them, and then you can rule them out immediately.
Okay.
Common trolls, river trolls, stone trolls. The common trolls are the cheapest, they're only 41 points. They have initiative 2, but you're probably giving them great weapons anyway, so it doesn't matter.
You're definitely getting great weapons.
River trolls the most expensive, coming in at a grand total of 49 points, but they have got the extra wound, which
Full
is nice.
wounds.
Stone trolls are the middling in terms of points. They're 45 points, but they do come with a higher base leadership, 5. Probably, given you've got Oidis Way, is probably not going to be that relevant. But critically, they do have magic resistance 1.
And they also have heavy armor instead of light
heavy
armor.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So the reason you take this is the way that this list falls apart is to flaming attacks. Basically battle magic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, everyone is aware that battle magic's really, really good. So you're going to be facing multiple fireballs between, a battle magic caster or 2 and Ruby Ring, probably every other game.
Yeah.
That's just something that you've got to put up with. So they have to cast it on a 9 instead of an 8. That makes a big difference. You'll be surprised how frequently people fail the Ruby Ring by casting it on a 6 and go, oh, too bad. It's a shame about that. But you also get a 5-up save against the fireballs because you're actually getting heavy armor. There's no AP on it. You don't get any regen, so it's important to have some level of save against it. So stone trolls are where it's at. And as you said, they're cheaper. So that does add up over the course of, I've got 16 stone trolls there. That's what, an extra 4 points each? You're looking at 72 odd points, something along those lines. Makes a big difference. Lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much for watching. This has been the breakdown of the Troll Horde Army of Infamy. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back in a few more weeks with something else. Have you got any requests? We were hoping for dwarves to be out by this point, but they haven't been. So let us know which you're most excited to see, and we'll maybe get round to that one. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, there's a link to subscribe over here. I really appreciate the support I've received over the last few months, and I'm looking forward to improving the channel and bringing you more content as the months go on. Down below are all the links. There's the Element affiliate link, all of our links to Discord, the 40k sister channel, everything else that we're doing down below. And on this side, there's another video. You don't have to click it, but you could. You could click it.